Russia threatens nuclear war against the West. So this is from Reuters. We're going to put this up on the screen now. Shows that Putin issues nuclear warning to the West over strikes on Russia from Ukraine. Going directly into the article now. This is coming saying that President Vladimir Putin warns the West on Wednesday that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it was struck with conventional missiles, and that Moscow would consider any assaults on it supported by a nuclear power to be a joint attack. The decision to change Russia's official nuclear doctrine is the Kremlin's answer to deliberations in the United States and Britain about whether or not to give Ukraine permission to fire conventional Western missiles into Russia. Now, this story is a couple weeks old at this point, but while it's a little bit older, I think it's still incredibly relevant and absolutely needs to be discussed because not a whole lot's changed since this was actually first issued at the end of September. But first, let's play the clip of Vladimir Putin making this issue.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia. Russia will also consider the possibility of using nuclear weapons when receiving reliable information about a massive launch of means of aerospace attack and their crossing of our state border. This includes strategic and tactical aircraft, as well as cruise missiles and drones, hypersonic and other delivery vehicles. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, poses a critical threat.
Look, let's be absolutely clear here. Any direction towards World War III, anytime that you're moving in a direction that's going to bring you closer to an all-out conflict with the country that has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the world, we need to be taking a pause and asking ourselves, are we sure we want to go forward from where we are? But before we got to get into more about that, let's first hear a little bit more of a breakdown about what this change in Russia's nuclear doctrine means. Here's a clip where we're going to be discussing that.
It is important to note at this point that these are at this time proposals to amend Russia's nuclear weapons use doctrine. We heard from Vladimir Putin multiple scenarios in which the rules and regulations governing how Russia can use its nuclear weapons will change. The first scenario is if a non-nuclear power attacks Russia with conventional arms but poses a grave or critical threat to Russia's sovereignty, the Russian leadership will be able to use nuclear weapons to neutralize that threat. The second scenario and how things will change is if that non-nuclear power that is attacking Russia is aided, supplied, abetted by a nuclear power, then that nuclear power will be considered a party to this conflict. So a joint attack on Russia, which will mean Russia will be able to use nuclear weapons both on the non-nuclear power and the nuclear power that it will consider attacking it. Also, Russia will be able to use, preemptively perhaps use, nuclear weapons if there is verified information, proof that there is an ongoing attack on Russia using aerospace assets, or, for example, a mass launch of drones.
So that clip was from RT, which is basically Russian state television. But there's one thing I want to point out about, what was said in that video. As the one reporter pointed out, talking about strikes made in Russian territory were concerned. I think it's also worth noting that if you go back and look at that video, in the top right, that reporter was in the Donetsk region, and it had labeled on the screen Russia, but that is actually occupied territory that is still recognized by the international community as land belonging to Ukraine. But currently, it is area that Russia has occupied and continues to occupy in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. But Russia considers that now to be their territory. This is part of the problem that we're having as we're continuously involved in this war between Ukraine and Russia. It is entirely volatile, and Vladimir Putin is a loose cannon. There is no telling whether or not he is actually serious about this. A lot of people really do consider the fact that he is serious about all of this. I mean, who's someone who actually does believe that he's serious about all this? Joe Biden. Let's put this up on the screen here. President Biden's national security team at one point believed that there was a 50% chance that Putin would, in fact, use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Look, all I'm trying to say is the fact that we are flirting with a potential nuclear war with a leader of a country who is willing to use nukes. Like, we have almost, like, I think, been scared, of this for 70 years now, maybe to the point where people maybe just don't even believe it's possible. Like, we've been afraid of it for so long, that there might be a nuclear war, that it almost just feels like, oh, well, it'll never happen because everyone knows what the outcome will be. Well, Vladimir Putin might be willing to do it. He is the kind of person who thinks that if Russia is going to go down, he'll just take the world with him. And so it feels a little strange to me that we be playing chicken with the fate of the entire planet with somebody who's actually willing to stay on that straight line and ram the car into the other car. Thankfully, there was a journalist who recently spoke to a U.S. State Department representative, or spokesperson rather, Matt Miller. Journalists did question Matt Miller about the U.S. State Department's involvement in continuing to arm Ukraine, even though they've been striking inside of Russia, given how Russia has been saying that if that continues to happen, that they might use nuclear weapons. Let's hear the clip really quick.
And meanwhile, in Ukraine, they've struck deep within Russian territory several times, as deep as 300 miles from the border. And in that case, we don't have to guess. We know that Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, as many as 6,000 warheads. And so one of the risks of arming militaries that are striking in the territories of nuclear powers is that one of those gets deployed, and then it could escalate very quickly from there. So it's rarely discussed, but it's important to address that the nuclear risk is real, and it could very abruptly mean the end of what humans have worked for thousands of years to collectively achieve. And us today are very lucky to live with the fruits of that achievement, and I feel like we're treating the risks kind of brazenly. So my question for you is, we often hear in response to these concerns that, well, Putin, Khomeini, they're war criminals, they're terrorists, as if they're too inherently evil or immoral for us to negotiate with. But meanwhile, this administration has financed a genocide in Gaza for the last year, and every day you're up there denying accountability for it. So, I mean, what gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral?
So if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech, there are plenty of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit in here. I mean, like, it is a genocide. You are abetting it, and you are risking nuclear war in Ukraine for this proxy war.
So I didn't actually get the name of that journalist, but bravo to that person for calling out the U.S. State Department policy, not just with Ukraine and Russia, but also with Gaza. I, firmly, applaud that. We need more of that as far as I'm concerned, is like calling these people out for what exactly they're doing and what they're not doing as far as foreign policy is concerned. But hey, I just want to say this really quickly, because we haven't talked about Ukraine and Russia on this channel. I understand Ukraine's resistance. At the end of the day, I know that, there are some people who say, like, oh, Russia had to invade for X, Y, and Z reason. Look, at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, from everything that I understand about what's going on over there, yes, does it feel as though the U.S. has been trying to provoke Russia in certain ways through different things that they've done since the end of the Cold War? Absolutely. Does that give Russia the green light to go in and invade a sovereign country and start attacking it with hundreds of thousands of troops? Absolutely not. It is an invasion at the end of the day. They are an occupying, invading force. And so I understand that Ukraine, wants to resist. Maybe the average citizen in Ukraine, has a different feeling about this than maybe the government of Ukraine does. But nevertheless, I understand why Ukraine wants to resist and protect its territory, its people from an invading force. My problem is that the U.S.'s involvement in this, because at the end of the day, I don't think that the U.S., government actually gives a damn about the Ukrainian people or their resistance to an invasion. I think that they see this as an opportunity to try to weaken the Russian military. And nothing more than that. And also, well, I guess nothing more than that. Also, it's a nice payday for the weapons manufacturers and the defense contractors here in America. With that being said, I would hope that more Americans would speak up and say that we can't continue to be funding this. We are sending tens of billions of dollars time after time after time to this country when we are seeing here back at home, especially right now with these hurricanes hitting our country is running out of money. We don't have the money needed to repair these communities in the South from these hurricanes that are destroying North Carolina and Florida right now. We'd probably have some more money if we weren't sending it over into these proxy wars that we have no business being involved in the first place. So again, I understand the Ukrainian plight. They want to protect themselves from Russia. By all means, I think they should do what they feel they need to do. I just don't know that the U.S. needs to be involved in this any way, shape, or form, because I don't think that there's anything really genuine about our desire to continue to arm the Ukrainian military other than a payday for us and a weakening of an adversary. Thank you for watching this video of Independent Thought. If you liked the conversation, please go ahead and give the video itself a like, and be sure to subscribe for future episodes on the channel.